Let's talk about the biggest downer to the reproductive system and how to avoid it. Hi, I'm Dr. Peter Minke. This is Minke Wellness. And the biggest downer, the biggest, sort of lid that's going to be put on the reproductive system is stress. Okay, there's hands down the biggest thing that's going to put a damper down on the reproductive system, on the functioning of the organs, on interest, sexual interest, libido. All of that is stress. Stress is going to drop all those things. And there's pretty good reasons for that. I mean, if you look at the physiological connection between stress and low libido, low functioning of the reproductive system, it's simple. And that is that if stress, meaning like, okay, I am being chased by a lion and I'm running for my life, I don't have time to be interested in sex and reproduction. That is not my main focus, okay? So when the body is experiencing that kind of stress, significant, massive stress, life-threatening stress, then it says, okay, we got to shut down the reproductive system, shut down all that, and divert all of its attention just to muscles, cardiovascular, running, that kind of thing where we're going to move. The problem is you say, well, come on, I mean, I'm not being chased by a lion, so it's not a big deal. Well, but most people stress, they're running the equivalent stress as if they are being chased by a lion. And that's where we don't recognize the amount of stress that we're in all the time. Just driving, it basically sets up life-threatening stress response because as you're driving along, you're only, if you're on a two-lane road, you're only 16 feet away from a head-on collision, and let's say that road is a 55-mile-an-hour road, and assuming you only drive 55 miles an hour on that road, and the other person is also only driving, that's a 110-mile-an-hour collision, head-on collision that you're narrowly avoiding by about 16 feet, okay? Well, and you go, okay, well, come on, I do that. Yeah, you know that, but the subconscious part of your brain, as you're coming up, is not absolutely certain that that car that's coming is going to stay in its lane, and then the next car, and then the next car, and the next car. So it's constantly registering in the subconscious mind life-threatening, potential life-threatening scenarios, and the human animal, the human body, the human person was never meant to deal with that kind of stress. Driving is extremely unnatural and sets up a huge amount of stress. And most people are driving every single day. And many people in stressful situations, just even for your own emotional stress, you're sitting in traffic, people cutting you off, that kind of thing. And so there's just that stress right there. Now that is just that alone would explain a drop in the reproductive functioning. But there's obviously a lot more stress going on. And so this is our wellness strategy to stop poisoning the reproductive system, to flood the reproductive system with nutrients, and to manage stress, okay? Stress is going to be a big factor. Now, there's some other things to think about in terms of stress. And so you're someone that doesn't drive at all. You're just at home, you're relaxed, everything's good, but you watch the news. Guess what? The news is crafted to elicit a stress response, to get you riled up, okay? So that's another source of stress. It's just pure stress that we're adding into our lives that doesn't have to be there, but it's accumulating. So we're running a baseline stress. So there's one thing. There's several ways to go about it. First of all, okay, look, we're talking about stress here. So the first thing is to try to ascertain how much stress you're actually under. Try removing some obvious stress sources. One of those would be the news, okay? And if you're into violent video games, violent movies, violent entertainment, get rid of all sources of this external stress, external violence, external things like that. The news is very violent. They search the whole world over for the worst of human behavior, and they parade it in front of us on 15-minute intervals. Okay, and that's just not normal. That's not natural. There may be a few bad things that happen in your neighborhood in your entire lifetime, but your neighborhood is pretty much safe. But it's not what's portrayed. And so anyway, it's a very artificial scenario. So look to get rid of the news for a while. Okay, do the 30-day, what I call a 30-day challenge, is get rid of the news, get rid of your violent video games, get rid of all that stuff, and just spend a little time breathing. Okay, so breathing. So first of all, stop poisoning ourselves in the stress category. That's the first part. Next is flood the body with nutrients. Well, flood the body with nutrients in the stress category is really good thoughts, right? So flood the brain and the body with good thoughts. And I use breathing. Breathe in love, breathe in goodness, breathe in light, fill your life, fill your body, fill your soul, pump it up. Bring in all the love and goodness, okay? With every breath, you can breathe it. So we've been doing all this breathing. So practice that. Play with that. Bring that. Well, deep breathing with the diaphragm. So now make sure we're doing it with the diaphragm. Breathing down low. Breathing with the diaphragm, deep breathing, actually triggers a reflex response to lower stress levels. So best thing you can do for your adrenal glands, which we'll get into that in just a moment. The adrenal glands get all stressed out and cranked up, and the best thing to get those to calm down is deep breathing. It's the best thing you can do for it. So pause, take a deep breath, right? And now we've got our two basic categories here. We've stopped the stress input and do something action and take some action to make less stress or to bring in the good parts to calm the system down. So deep breathing and avoid the negatives. So let's go back to look at the physiology, because the hormones are involved in all this, and it becomes really important because you hear the word adrenal fatigue, the phrase adrenal fatigue. It's tossed around a lot. What does that mean? Well, if you're on that constant stress, that sympathetic nervous system, which is cranked up all the time, if you're on that all the time, it's addictive. First of all, it's very addictive, because that produces cortisol, produces these chemicals in the brain, produces endorphins even if it's stressed enough. And so you're getting this constant different kind of urgency stimulation to the brain, and it's like candy. I mean, it's addictive. Well, but what the consequence is it's burning up hormones, right? It's using up stress hormones, it's increasing stress hormones. When the body goes into that kind of stress, it diverts production of hormones away from sex hormones, away from progesterone, estrogen, testosterone. It instead produces more cortisone and more cortisol and all the different stress hormones. So in other words, we're actually literally changing the physiology away from the sex organs, which are going to make sex hormones, which are going to make you interested in sex. Okay, that's definitely going to decrease your interest in sex because of just the loss of hormones. So in stress, especially for women, stress will burn up progesterone. It'll actually prevent the production of progesterone. And so as progesterone goes down, not only does your interest in sex go down, your libido drops, but your actual cycle starts getting messed up, and you don't have enough progesterone to support a pregnancy. So many women who are actually wanting to get pregnant, and they're conceiving and then miscarrying because they don't have enough progesterone, and that's where a product that would support progesterone would be really good. Okay, and that would be in that time of early pregnancy or right after ovulation, and we'll talk more about how to use progesterone products at another video. Okay, so we've got our hormone impact. We directly affect our hormones by stress, but there's another factor of what stress does, and it's distractions, right? It actually distracts us. It brings our focus on something else. It keeps the mind in a, sort of what I call a chihuahua mode, right? Those little dogs, and, they're just all little, they're just hyped up all the time. And we're in that brain stays in that little hyped up mode all the time, never gets a deep breath. Literally, the body never gets a deep breath. And then we are distracted. We've got all these things that are vying for our attention. Well, guess what? the reproductive system requires some nurturing, right? And that's part of the package. I know people who are wanting to have children can't have children, and I start talking to them and go, well, is there any room for a child in your life, right? Or they say their libido is down. It's like, well, are you spending any time? Are you investing any of yourself in your intimate relationships, right? Are you investing in that? You have to calm down, pause enough to think about your partner, think about sex, to think about that's what you want to, you want to give to another partner. We'll talk more about the beauty of mutual giving in the sex act. But when we're talking about stress and the impact on it, stress is distracting. It takes our mind away from everything. And women, this is especially bad because you get in there, and even if you're momentarily interested, you're so distracted by all the other stuff that's going on. Oh, I got to do my little Facebook thing, and I wonder how that thing is going. And all those things are running through your mind, and you're not paying attention to what's going on. So it's like, I don't have time right now. I'm not interested in sex because, I don't have time for that. And it's basically, we're just not putting our interest and attention there. If you don't nurture something, it withers. If you don't put attention to something, it disappears, it diminishes. And that's what's happening in our reproductive systems and our reproductive health, our sex and sexuality, is we're just so distracted with other things. And what are those other things? Those other things are mostly me focused, right? They're all about me. And like I said at the very beginning of this is one body system that is outside of yourself. The whole focus of the reproductive system is outside of you. It's your partner in order to make a child, and now both of you focusing on something outside of yourself, which is to say a baby. And I know that you're going to say, look, enough with the baby thing. I'm done. I'm past the baby age. No, you're not. I mean, yes, you might be past the biological age for baby, but the body is going to respond in the same way. The brain is going to respond in the same way. And so there's that. If you come back and recognize that you need to focus on something outside yourself, pause for a moment, let the creativity flow, right? So the reproductive system really does represent the creativity and spiritual sense of what, the creative force in your life, right? And so if you're one of those people that says, hey, I just feel dead inside, I don't have any interests, I don't have any hobbies, I just don't have any zest for life anymore, then you need to go and look at doing this working this whole month for supporting your reproductive system, because that's where your creativity is coming in. I don't care how old you are. I don't care whether you're past the point of having kids and all that. Okay, so just to recap real quick here, is stress is the real downer to the reproductive system, and we can manage our stress in different ways, but we have to take away these sources of stress, and we have to start breathing and adding in some good stuff. And recognize that this system, again, is not all about us. We've got to do our part to participate in something that is bigger than us. It's outside of ourselves. And what the nice thing is, you don't have to think of it as outside of yourself very much farther than your partner, right? I mean, your spouse is there's your one person to focus on outside of yourself. So you do have your own stress levels to worry about. But as far as the relationship goes, to work on that, okay? And of course, we have oils and breathing, and we'll talk more about that as we go along here, okay? So happy wellness, one day at a time. We're working through the reproductive system.